and welcome to the Brac Shop. And thanks for coming back again, or if it's your first time, thanks for joining us. I have been talking about dolls in my previous episodes, possessed dolls, and that's nothing new for clowns. The toy clowns that you can buy, and for some reason, children have all become to be scared of clowns. Why? I'll tell you why. But really, clowns have been a form of amusement and comedy for centuries, for millenniums, because they date back to ancient Egypt. And our modern day clown probably developed from the comedy dell'arte, way back in Italy, back in the 1500s or so. And you had characters like Zanni and Harlequin and Colombina. And now they've evolved to be the clowns that we know today. Although the clown faces that we are currently familiar with was probably developed by or started by Joseph Garibaldi back in the 1800s. And with all the many different clown faces, there's actually a register to register different clown faces for posterity. And they're actually in the Clowns Gallery Museum, which you can find in Dalston in England. And there you'll find a registry, a whole collection of clown faces. And they've actually been painted on eggshells, would you believe? And there you can see all the different faces and a record to what their faces used to look like. And originally there was like 200 different faces, but I think there's only about 44 that now survive. And this was started back in around the 1940s. And the clown faces are on all the different eggshells. And there's a rumor that McDonald's has bought the rights to most of the clown faces. So every time someone uses a particular face, McDonald's will get a royalty. And but that's just a rumor. I don't know how much of that is true, because I couldn't find anything in my research on this. And it seems that McDonald's have actually given Ronald McDonald, their mascot, actually a rest from all the marketing and advertising, because at the present, clowns just don't seem to be in favor that much with the public, unless they want to get a scare. Now, where did this fright come from? Well, as far as I can remember, way back in the 50s, they were a form of amusement. You see them at the circus and at parties, and the kids loved them. It was always being funny and clumsy and stupid and sad. But what happened? And we think it was Stephen King's It, his novel that put the fear into clowns. And ever since then, it's developed with the remake and use in the American Horror Story that clowns have now become scary and children are fearful of clowns. And even the toy clowns, because in the 50s and 60s, they were very popular. You could buy toy clowns just as you can buy toys for children. And there's been stories of some of these clowns being possessed as well. Like Vincent Hitchcock, the clown owned by Rachel. Now, she actually bought it off Thomas, who bought it from an antique dealer. So always be careful of what you get from a second-hand shop. Now, this clown was put on eBay by Thomas because it was freaking his wife out. And Rachel bought it from an eBay auction. Now, she named him Vincent Hitchcock, after Vincent Price, the horror movie actor, and Alfred Hitchcock, the director for suspense and mystery films. And she placed Vincent Hitchcock in her house. And it wasn't until a few days later that she went into the bedroom to get the laundry basket, and Vincent was sitting in front of the laundry basket. And she thought someone had moved it in the house, but no one had. And then they decided to put him in a new place right in the middle of the house where everyone could keep an eye on him. And there've actually been reports of him actually moving around still. And he also talks. Now, Rachel has an EVP recording device. That's an electronic voice phenomenon recording equipment that records voices of spirits. Now, she's been able to pick up recordings of him saying things like, get rid of it, run, and something like, I love you, or I love you. But the most bizarre one was he had a recording of it saying, wake up. And apparently a few nights prior to that, her daughter had heard that voice. But Rachel actually feels that Vincent has a very childlike aura around this clown. So, and apart from moving around, he hasn't actually done anything mischievous or harmful. So she's been quite happy to have Vincent around. And as far as we know, Vincent is still with Rachel today. But that's a bit different from the 5 clowns that were possessed. Now, Sarah, she bought 2 clowns from an antique store, and there were a set of 5 limited edition of clowns. And she was quite happy that she bought the 2 of them and she took them home. And she was actually a collector of dolls and clowns, so she actually put these 2 clowns with her other dolls, and she noticed they moved around. And that wasn't too bad. It was just that she started hearing noises in the night, like tappings in the wall, and they started moving around the wall there. But that wasn't too bad. It was when she started having the dreams. She would dream that she was being chased by monsters, and they'd turn into clowns, and they'd open their mouths, and there would be these rows of sharp, jagged teeth. And that's when it got too much for her. And so she decided to call in John Zaffis. Now, he's a paranormal investigator and demonologist. And he came in and had a look at the clowns. He ended up taking them off her. He put a binding spell on them to contain whatever entity was in these dolls so they'd be harmless, and he took them away. Now, they were a set of 5, don't forget. He contacted the antique dealer. What he found from the antique dealer was that she said that there was always an uneasiness in the shop when the clowns were there, and she was actually glad that they were gone. And she said she would never take in clowns again. John Zaffis didn't have any contact with the other clowns, but apparently the second owner actually contacted him, and she said she was experiencing noises around the house, nightmares. John Zaffis went in and had a look at the dolls. He put a binding spell on them and safeguarded them. And then the owner actually wanted to keep them because they were safe now, she said. And he said they were, provided the binding spell wasn't compromised. Because if there was any touch-up with it, they could have gone crazy again. Now, the last doll, the owner actually contacted John Zaffis as well. And she was experiencing the nightmares and the strange going-ons as well. And he was going to pay her a visit. But even before he got to see her, she had posted the clown to John, because she didn't want anything to do with it anymore. So John Zaffis now has 3 of the clown dolls. Now, John Zaffis actually thinks that the 5 dolls were originally used in an occult ritual, like a voodoo ritual. And he thinks they've attracted these spirits or entities and put them into these dolls, which is why they're the way they are. What I'd like to know is, why wasn't a medium brought in to communicate with these clowns and find out what was actually going on? Why are they like that? And what is actually, or what entity is contained within inside these clowns? And that's with any of the other possessed dolls as well. Why don't we ask them to find out what's going on instead of actually just placing them into these museums? They may be quite frustrated there. So if you've enjoyed this episode of The Clowns, why don't you like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to click the alarm bell down below so you'll be notified every time I bring a new story. And also tell your friends and share this as well. And follow us on our social platforms like Instagram, Facebook. And I'll be back with a new story. So until then, beware of what you pick up, especially in the second-hand or the antique stores. So I'll see you then.